A mother shot nearly a dozen times while her 3 kids slept by her side. The father of those kids accused of staging a murder and making it look like a home invasion.
Saun Rainge Jr. showed up at his neighbor's door bleeding, asking for help. His girlfriend had been shot. He'd been shot too. A home invasion, he said. Someone broke in, demanded money, and started shooting. But here's the thing. Investigators found out Porsche Streeter had been dead for 2 hours before he knocked on that door. So what was he doing all that time? When the clock strikes midnight, the truth comes out. I'm 12 a.m. crime, and every single day I bring you real cases of domestic violence that turn deadly. The stories the system tried to bury. The victims who deserve justice. If you're about that raw, unfiltered truth, hit subscribe. New case drops every day at midnight. Don't sleep on justice. This is 12 a.m. crime. Porsche Streeter was 30 years old and doing her thing in Orlando, Florida. She was a hair and makeup artist, and girl, she was talented. You could show her a picture of any look you wanted, and she would make it happen. No question. She ran her whole business right out of her apartment, building a name for herself, one client at a time. People who knew her say she had a gentle spirit. She was God-fearing, kept her head down, took care of her 3 kids. That was her focus. Her babies. Everything she did was for them. Now, Saun Rainge Jr. He was the father of those 3 children, 32 years old. And at some point, their relationship fell apart. They weren't together anymore. Porsche had moved on. She was in a new relationship, trying to live her life, trying to build something stable for her kids. But Saun? He wasn't handling that well. Not at all. See, there were issues. Custody disputes over the children. Money problems. Saun claimed Porsche was hiding money from him, which is wild considering she was the one financially stable while he was struggling. But you know how it goes. When someone can't let go, they start creating narratives that don't even make sense. They start blaming you for everything that's going wrong in their life. And according to text messages that investigators found later, Saun wasn't even supposed to be at Porsche's apartment. She had made it clear he wasn't welcome there. So why was he there on January 13th, 2024? That's the question. January 13th started like any other day. Porsche was at home with her 3 children. The apartment was quiet. Normal. Just another morning. But at 9:30, neighbors heard gunshots. Multiple gunshots. Loud enough to know something was seriously wrong. Inside that apartment, Porsche was asleep in her bed. Her 3 babies were right there with her, sleeping, safe, or so they thought. Someone came into that bedroom. Someone walked right up to where Porsche lay sleeping and opened fire. Not once, not twice, 10 times, 10 bullets, while her children were right there. One of those kids, her 10-year-old son, got kicked in the head during this whole ordeal. Kicked in the head. Let me tell you something. The level of cruelty we're talking about here is beyond comprehension. Porsche never had a chance to defend herself, never had a chance to protect her babies. She was executed in her own bed. But here's where it gets twisted. After the shooting, there's no 911 call, no ambulance, no rush to get help. Nothing. The clock keeps ticking. 9:45, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock. 2 whole hours pass. Porsche is bleeding out, dying. Already gone, really. And still, no one's calling for help. Then, at 11:30, Saun Rainge Jr. starts knocking on neighbors' doors. He's bleeding from his upper arm. He's frantic now, asking for help, telling anyone who'll listen that something terrible happened. One neighbor who didn't want to show his face on camera later said Saun was asking for help, knocking on people's doors. Said it looked like Something really bad happened. That neighbor had no idea how right he was, but also how wrong the story was about to turn out to be. When deputies arrived, they found Porsche Streeter shot to death in her bedroom, and they found Saun with a gunshot wound to his upper arm. He had a story ready. Someone forced their way into the apartment, demanded money, went into the bedroom, kicked his 10-year-old son, started shooting, shot Porsche, shot him. A home invasion, random violence, terrible tragedy. He told investigators he stayed with Porsche the whole time, begging her to keep fighting, telling her to hold on, playing the devastated boyfriend who tried everything to save her. But detectives? They weren't buying it. Not even a little bit. First of all, the timeline didn't match. At all. Medical examiners determined that Porsche died approximately 2 hours before that 911 call came in. 2 hours. So if she died around 9:30 or shortly after, and Saun didn't call for help until 11:30, what exactly was he doing during that time? Because it sure wasn't trying to save her life. Second, those text messages. The ones that showed Saun wasn't supposed to be at the apartment in the first place. So how did he just happen to be there during this so-called random home invasion? Make it make sense. Third, his whole story about someone breaking in. Footage in the area didn't support that. There was no evidence of forced entry, no signs of a struggle that would match his version of events. And then there's the matter of his behavior. Detectives wrote in their report that Porsche Streeter's well-being and safety was clearly not his priority. Think about that. Your girlfriend, the mother of your children, is shot multiple times and dying, and your priority isn't getting her help immediately. You wait 2 hours. Girl, the 10-year-old child, the one who got kicked in the head, gave a statement to investigators. That child helped identify someone who shouldn't have been there, someone who matched the description of a man named Benjamin Garman. And who is Benjamin Garman? Saun Rainge Jr.'s cousin. Oh, so now we're getting somewhere. Investigators started digging into Benjamin Garman. They executed a search warrant on a residence he was at after the homicide. And guess what they found? Firearms. Multiple firearms. Now, here's the kicker. Benjamin Garman is a convicted felon. Convicted felons aren't supposed to have guns, period. So federal prosecutors stepped in on those weapons charges. Garman pled guilty to those. But that was just the beginning, because while Garman was sitting in custody on federal weapons charges, detectives kept working. They kept building their case. And the picture that emerged, it wasn't a home invasion. It wasn't random violence. It was a setup, a staged murder, calculated, planned, cold-blooded. When Orange County Sheriff's deputies arrived at that apartment on January 13th, they saw exactly what Saun wanted them to see. A woman shot to death, a man injured, a chaotic scene that looked like a robbery gone wrong. But detectives started asking questions, and the answers didn't line up. The medical examiner's report came back first. Porsche Streeter had been dead for approximately 2 hours before that 911 call. That was the first red flag. Because if you're really a victim, if someone really just shot your girlfriend and shot you, you're calling 911 immediately. You're not waiting around for 2 hours, unless you're waiting for something else, unless the delay is part of the plan. Then investigators pulled Saun's phone records, text messages, and those messages told a different story than the one Saun was selling. The texts showed that Saun wasn't supposed to be at Porsche's apartment. She had made that clear. He wasn't welcome there, so his whole, presence at the scene was already suspicious. Security footage from the area got reviewed. Cameras picked up movement, timelines, vehicles, pieces of a puzzle that didn't match Saun's version of a random home invasion. But the real breakthrough? That came from the 10-year-old child, the same child who got kicked in the head during the shooting. That baby had to sit there and watch someone kill his mother, had to hear those gunshots, had to see his father bleeding, had to process trauma no child should ever experience. And when investigators talked to him, when they asked him what he saw, he gave them details. He described someone, and that description matched Benjamin Garman. Detectives started building a timeline. They started connecting dots. Saun and Benjamin were cousins, family. Benjamin had a criminal record. He was a convicted felon. And when investigators executed that search warrant on Benjamin's residence after the homicide, they found firearms. That's how the federal prosecutors got involved first, because a convicted felon with guns is an automatic case for them. Benjamin Garman pled guilty to those federal weapons charges. But while he was sitting in custody, detectives kept working on the murder case. They weren't just looking at Benjamin. They were looking at Saun too. The 36-page arrest affidavit laid it all out. Investigators called Saun's story unfathomable. They said Porsche Streeter's well-being and safety clearly wasn't his priority. And they were right. Because what kind of person waits 2 hours to call for help when someone they claim to love is dying? What kind of person stages their own injury to cover up a murder? What kind of person uses their own cousin to execute the mother of their children? Detectives found evidence of the motives. The custody disputes. The new relationship Porsche was in that Saun couldn't handle. The money issues. Text messages where Saun accused Porsche of hiding money from him. All of it painted a picture of a man who couldn't let go. A man who saw Porsche moving on without him and decided that if he couldn't have her life the way he wanted it, she wouldn't have a life at all. The case against both men got stronger every day. Forensics, witness statements, phone records, security footage, financial records. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. This wasn't a home invasion. This was a hit, a planned execution, and Saun Rainge Jr. was the architect. More than a year after Porsche Streeter was murdered, in early 2025, authorities finally made their move. They arrested Saun Rainge Jr. for first-degree murder. Shortly after, Benjamin Garman was transferred into Orange County custody to face the same charge. Both men are now looking at life in prison, first-degree murder. And because of the aggravating factors, because Benjamin shot Porsche not just once, but 10 times, because this was premeditated and staged, the legal experts say there's no room for self-defense claims. There's no room for anything except accountability. Criminal defense attorneys not associated with the case have said this is a very serious crime, and when you shoot somebody 10 times, that aggravation is going to be considered. It shows intent. It shows brutality. It shows that this wasn't an accident or a crime of passion. This was an execution. Detectives called it good old-fashioned detective work, following leads, checking timelines, listening to witnesses, building a case brick by brick. And that work paid off. Because now 2 men who thought they could get away with murder are sitting in jail cells facing the rest of their lives behind bars.
Fox 35 News exclusive interview. For the very first time, we're hearing from close friends of that mother. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm John Brown.
And I'm Luann Sorrell. Fox 35's Manny Martinez is live in Orlando tonight. So Manny, that boyfriend allegedly had his cousin shoot him in the arm to make it appear like he was a victim too.
And Luann, that's all laid out here in these 36 pages for the affidavit for the suspect's arrest. These are usually no longer than 5 or 6 pages at most. So that shows you just how intensive and extensive this investigation has been. Deputies say it came down to good old-fashioned detective work. And tonight, the woman's friend and the sheriff's office say the suspect's story just didn't add up. More than 1 year since Porsche Streeter was shot and killed while she was asleep with her own children, her friends are still grappling with the loss.
She was a God-fearing woman. And, you know, if you got to know her, you know that she had a gentle spirit.
She's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Deputies say Saun Rainge, the father of Streeter's 3 kids, worked with his cousin, Benjamin Garman, to kill her and even stage a home invasion. Streeter was just 30 years old. Family and friends describe her as a loving mom and a gifted hair and makeup artist.
She was so talented. You could show her a picture, and I guarantee you, you were going to look like the picture that you wanted.
She died January 13, 2024. Neighbors heard gunshots around 9:30 that morning, but detectives say Rainge called 911 2 hours later, after the alleged shooter came back and shot him in the arm. We spoke with a neighbor who didn't want to show his face on camera.
He was asking for help and, starting, knocking on people's doors. I was like, oh my God, something really bad happened.
Rainge told detectives someone forced their way into the apartment, demanded money, went into the bedroom, kicked his 10-year-old son in the head, and started shooting Streeter. In the investigative paperwork, detectives say they found that story unfathomable, adding Porsche Streeter's well-being and safety was clearly not his priority.
How dare you pull someone's life away from them? How dare you do God's job? How dare you strip someone of their future? So how dare you strip 3 beautiful kids of their mother?
And deputies laid out some possible motives here in this case. They say the suspect was upset his ex was in a new relationship. The two disagreed over the custody of their children. And deputies say the suspect was having some money problems while she was not. Rainge is due in court next week. We're live in Orlando tonight. Manny Martinez, Fox 35 News.
Manny, thanks.
Over a year after Porsche Streeter took her last breath in that bedroom, justice started catching up. In early 2025, the Orange County Sheriff's Office arrested Saun Rainge Jr. They charged him with first-degree murder, the man who begged Porsche to keep fighting while knowing she'd been dead for hours, the man who knocked on neighbors' doors playing victim, the man who orchestrated his own children's mother's execution. He was finally in handcuffs. Benjamin Garman, who'd already been in federal custody on those weapons charges, got transferred to Orange County to face his own first-degree murder charge. His arraignment was scheduled for late January 2025. When his new mugshot came out, showing him in Orange County custody, it was clear the walls had closed in completely. The evidence was overwhelming. That 36-page affidavit, the medical examiner's timeline, the text messages, the 10-year-old statement, the security footage, the phone records, everything pointed to guilt. Both men are now facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. Legal experts weighed in, and they all said the same thing. When you're charged with shooting someone 10 times in a premeditated staged murder, there's no self-defense argument. There's no way out. The aggravating factors, the brutality, the planning, it all adds up to the most serious consequences the law can offer. At the time of this recording, both cases are moving through the court system. The state attorney's office is building toward trial, and unless there's a plea deal, which seems unlikely given the evidence, Saun Rainge Jr. and Benjamin Garman will face a jury that will hear every detail of what they did to Porsche Streeter. Porsche Streeter's friends remember her as more than just a victim. They remember her talent, her gentle spirit, her love for her children. One friend said, "She was a God-fearing woman, and if you got to know her, you had to know she had a gentle spirit." Another said about her skills, "You could show her a picture, and I guarantee you were going to look like the picture that you wanted." That was Porsche. Gifted. dedicated, a mother trying to build a life for her babies. But now those 3 children are growing up without her. They witnessed trauma no child should ever see. They lost their mother to violence, and they lost their father to his own choices. One of Porsche's friends said it best when she asked, "How dare you pull someone's life away from them? How dare you do God's job? How dare you strip someone of their future? How dare you strip 3 beautiful kids of their mother?" Those questions don't have answers, because there is no good reason for what happened to Porsche. There's no justification, there's no excuse. Domestic violence doesn't always show up as bruises you can see. Sometimes it shows up as control, as jealousy, as a refusal to let someone move on and live their life in peace. Porsche Streeter wasn't even with Saun Rainge Jr. anymore. She had moved on. She was building something new, and that's what got her killed. Not because she did anything wrong, but because someone couldn't handle losing control over her. The National Domestic Violence Hotline exists for people who need help. Confidential help. It's there because too many people like Porsche don't get out in time. The number is 1-800-799-7233. If you're reading this and you're in a situation where someone is controlling you, isolating you, threatening you, or refusing to let you go, please reach out, because Porsche's story doesn't have to be yours. Moving on now. Porsche Streeter was 30 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was talented, she was loved, and she was trying to do right by her kids. But on January 13th, 2024, someone decided that wasn't enough. Someone decided his feelings, his anger, his need for control was more important than her life. And now 3 children are without their mother, and 2 men are facing the consequences of a choice they can never take back. That's the story of Porsche Streeter, a mother, a businesswoman, a woman who deserved so much more than what she got. And while justice is moving forward in the courts, her children will carry this loss forever. That's the real tragedy here. Not just that she died, but that she was taken, stolen from her kids by someone who was supposed to protect them, not destroy their family. Rest in peace, Porsche Streeter. Your story matters. Your life mattered. And the people who loved you will make sure you're not forgotten.